Welcome back to the CreaTech stage at CogX Hybrid Festival 2021. CogX is a global leadership summit and festival of artificial intelligence and transformational technology, addressing the big question, how do we get the next 10 years right? I'm Leila Siddiqui, Associate Director, Diversity and Inclusion at the IPA and member of the Creative Industries Council Diversity Group. I am so excited to be your MC this afternoon because CreaTech has an absolutely stellar lineup of cutting-edge content from gaming, live performance, advertising, esports, visual arts, music, fashion, and much, much more. CreaTech is unique in that it is the intersection of creative and technology industries where innovation in virtual reality, artificial intelligence, algorithms, specialized software, and others are transforming creative services, outputs, and processes. In other news, applications are now open for our annual showcase of the best innovations in UK CreaTech, which we call Ones to Watch 2021. You can find out more about applying for Ones to Watch on our website, www.thecreativeindustries.co.uk. Please do join the conversation on social using hashtag CreaTechUK and hashtag CogX2021. So let's dive right in. The title of the upcoming session is How is Fast Fashion Becoming Slow Fashion? Since 2000, clothing production has doubled, but 85% of textiles end up in landfill, and fashion production itself contributed to 10% of humanity's carbon emissions. We are so excited to bring you a thought leadership session where experts in the sector will explore the game-changing new technology that is bringing sustainability to textile development and is bringing accountability to the sector as well. This session will be moderated by the wonderful Frankie Phillips, founder, creative, and sustainability director TOBEFRANK, launched in September 2019 as a revolutionary sustainable fashion brand. Frankie, welcome. Super excited to have you and to hear more. Over to you.
Thank you so much for such a lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to talk about fast fashion going slow. I'm Frankie Phillips, founder of clothing brand TOBEFRANK and also the responsible manufacturing hub, the Rubbish Fashion Company. My career first started when it first started my brand overseas, working for a supplier. And I saw so much and it completely transformed the way I felt about an industry I'd always adored. I've seen the best side of fashion, but I've also seen the worst. And this inspired me to start producing for other brands and retailers through my own transparent, responsible, no compromise supply chain, with the goal to reduce fashion's negative impact. And this is why I love this conversation so much, because it's about turning fast fashion and turning it slow. I am joined today by three fascinating people. We've got Sojin Lee, the founder of TOSHI. Sojin started her career on Wall Street, but began her luxury journey at Chanel. After co-founding Fashionaire, consulting at Kering, Sojin started TOSHI to change the online shopping experience. I've also got Arizona Muse, model, activist, sustainable consultant. Arizona is one of the leading voices from the fashion sector, as well as being a voice for change, working with Sustainable Angle and Fashion Revolution. Arizona works with brands to lower their environmental impact. We've also got Dr. Jane Harris, is Professor of Digital Design and Innovation at UAL. Jane has been in textile and technology innovation, heading up many programs, currently one of which as Director of the Business of Fashion, Textile and Technology, Creative R&D Partnerships, an £8 million program delivered by the Arts Humanities Research Council. And Jen has also received awards from the National Endowment for Science, Technology and the Arts, Channel 4 Arts Foundation. I mean, pretty impressive, everybody. Today, we are talking about fast fashion going slow. As we know, it is doubled, which is quite scary. As the prices of clothing is dropping, the environmental and human cost is rising. And what can we do to change this? And who do we talk to about actually making those changes happen? The first question, I'll go straight in. The first question actually is for all of you. Affordability is actually one of the most reasons why consumers aren't shopping more consciously, and actually why the brands themselves aren't sourcing more responsibly. Carrie, our PM's wife, wore a beautiful rented wedding dress from My Wardrobe HQ for £40, which hit all the headlines. Carrie's outfits from the the G7 Summit were also all rented. This gives most consumers a luxury but attainable option. Do you think rental is an answer to replace fast fashion as an easy and affordable way of being more conscious? I mean, any of you can jump in on this one.
Should I go?
Yes. Sojin, go.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's very exciting. So I'll just say that my business TOSHI is really about addressing the last mile opportunity and how on-demand and logistics can be a part of streamlining, obviously, a piece of the sustainability conversation. So when it comes to rental, obviously we know the circular economy is critical. And I would say that from the view of where I stand, when we think about the rental market, no doubt it's growing astronomically. And even today, TOSHI is in conversations with rental businesses, but also with brands who are launching their own in-house rental sections. And what we do is, we support them by taking the products to the consumer's house or office, but obviously more home these days, and we bring them choices. And this way, what we're doing is allowing the consumer to have the human engagement and experience, pick the product that they like, which is obviously a part of the sustainability play, but also we'll take back to the brand whatever the customer does not keep. And it's also localized. So in effect, we're making the efficiencies of moving those goods around much faster, more streamlined, more efficient, but also more sustainable. So it really helps the life cycle of that rental product. So that in effect, the carbon footprint is being reduced more and more and more. And obviously I'll explain more of how we do that later on. But that's certainly for me important. But yes, the rental market is absolutely critical to where we're going, and it will be one of the pivotal pillars of this industry.
Arizona, what do you think?
So I'm a long-time supporter of rental. I've been on my sustainability journey for 6 years, and I've been an activist for the last 4 of those years, I would say. And it was the moment that I joined the streets with Extinction Rebellion that I decided and started to resonate and identify with that label of activist. Because until then I thought, I'm really shy. I'm not someone who can demonstrate for what I believe in and what I'm passionate about. But in fact, activism can take so many different shapes and forms and intensities. And I love now being referred to as an activist, and everything I do is activism. When I'm sitting at my computer doing this is activism, and it feels amazing. So I've been a supporter of rental for a very long time. At the very beginning of rental, it was exciting to think that my wardrobe was going to be able to be shared with other women, and that I would be able to peek inside the wardrobes of my friends or strangers even who were within my locality and wear their clothes. And that would displace the purchase of millions of new garments. What's happened throughout the journey of rental in the last kind of 3 to 4 years has been not exactly that I was hoping for, and many other members of the sustainable fashion movement were hoping for. So I do still hold that there could be a really amazing future for rental, which would be peer-to-peer, which is what I just described. But then also what's happening is brands are offloading old stock onto rental websites. So there's a lot of new garments on rental websites, and rental businesses seem to be following the model that was set by retailers, which is to give new drops as often as possible, like even every week, to satiate this desire for new stuff all the time, and to see new things, and to drive traffic to the website. And I can see how that is tempting to do that, because business is business, but we're in a place where we need people to really think differently and to act differently. So rather than following the retail model, I would really encourage all the rental businesses to say, no, we're really going to do things differently. We started out because we wanted to be more environmentally friendly, and we're going to stick to our guns on that. And we're not going to do new drops all the time. We're really going to encourage peer-to-peer. If we do take on new garments, we are going to try to do that in a way that doesn't encourage the brand to actually produce more. Because I know for a fact, because I've spoken to brands who do produce more, because now some of the big rental companies are their biggest wholesale accounts. So it's not all positive, it's not all amazing, but there are some really incredible things about rental.
That's really interesting you say that, Arizona, because I was talking to someone about that the other day. Basically, obviously, when it comes to as soon as we see Carrie in that gorgeous dress and that amazing blue suit that she wore, people then obviously want to be able to get that suit. But when it comes to rental clothes, it doesn't really work that way. You don't get that. You don't get to buy the same thing, basically, because they don't make it in bulk. Obviously, what you do with the fast fashion retailers of the world, that's actually what they'd probably take and copy, isn't it? So you're still going to have that fast fashion market actually in response to the increased kind of awareness of renting.
I think Arizona outlined really well the problem, but also the potential. And I think if we can maybe think about this period, although obviously it's incredibly pressing and urgent that we absolutely change our modes of consumption and fashion experience, the potential for young businesses particularly to really rethink the marketplace, rethink what the fashion experience is through different types of digital online platform is there for the taking. And I imagine there'll be quite a lot of experimentation in that process. Part of what we do as Business of Fashion, Textiles and Technology is award funding to SMEs who are thinking along those lines. So we've had a lot of applications over the last couple of years who've put that on the table to us. This is how they see the potential of this sort of, in inverted commas, rental space. But I think a lot has yet to happen to really fully develop the range of experiences one could. And I think Arizona put it very well in the sense that there's so much that can be done peer-to-peer. So much of the peeking into one another's wardrobe, but having a bit more fun with it and it not necessarily being monetary in the same ways we understand it currently. So, the wedding dress you refer to brings one level of consumer experience to the table, but I think there's just so many others that meet the circularity agenda that are yet to come.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of having that sense of community, isn't it? Kind of having a different type of experience when it comes to shopping.
Absolutely.
So, Arizona, you started your career on the glossy pages of the magazines, but you actually use that position and that platform to call attention to the key issues in fashion that actually aren't very glamorous. What actually was the turning point for you? It's actually always fascinated me about your career. And actually, since your work, working directly with the brands, to become more sustainable, how do you feel they're responding to it, especially within the last year?
The beginning of my learning journey into sustainability came when I realized I didn't know anything about the materials that were being used to make clothes, nor the people who made the clothes. And I was working in these clothes and helping to sell them. And that just felt really wrong. And I realized I had to know, I had to find out. And I went on a learning journey and started Googling things, watching weird YouTube videos and talking to people in the fashion industry, reading books, really getting involved in the sustainable fashion industry. People have mentored me like Ursula de Castro and Nina Morenzi, and I've had incredible support. And it's been the most amazing experience of my life. And I can really wholeheartedly say that it is so much more interesting and more fun to be into sustainable fashion than it is to be into fashion, because I've been both. And I love it. It's really amazing. But that was the beginning, was materials and having to know. And I do recommend that for anyone who's kind of like, oh, I know I want to know, but where do I start? Materials are the basis of our whole lives, and we don't really realize it until you start to learn about them. But if you think about it, materials include chemicals and the processing on materials. So a table is made of wood, but it will have probably several layers of chemicals on it to treat that wood and varnish it. Those are materials, and we need to know where every single one of them came from, and we need to know exactly what impact they had on the environment at the factory level, at where they were created level, and also as they live their life on the table kind of level. That's a very non-fashion example, but you can do that questioning formula for every single thing in your life. Like, look around your room and you'll see it. Even the house plant behind me on that side, that plant will have been grown somewhere. That seed will have come from somewhere. It's a native seed to somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but that kind of journey with materials is so exciting, and you learn so much about the world. Then you learn about economics, then you learn about trade, you learn about, and it just, like, for me, it was just, pooh. I didn't go to university because I was modeling when I was at university age. And this has been my own, like, self-guided university tour, really. And I did a short course at Cambridge on their sustainable business management, which was amazing. And I've read so many books and I've spoken to so many scientists, and it is, I cannot explain this enough. It is so much more exciting than not having done it.
Yeah, I agree with you. From being from the fashion side to now being, like, well, from the high street fashion side to now being on the sustainable side, it's so much really nicer industry to be in. And do you feel like the brands you work with, though, are they responding now to sustainability? Like, it's everywhere now. People can't hide from it, can they?
Absolutely. And one of the most common questions I get is actually, well, why do you still model? If you know everything about the industry and you know how bad it is, why are you still doing that? And the answer is, it's my access point. When I'm on a shoot, guess what I'm doing all day long? Chip, 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 tap, 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 about sustainability and how much fun it is and how amazing it is and how the future is sustainable. And if we don't do it now, what's going to happen, and how cool the people are who are working on these things. And this is where real innovation is happening. Mm-hmm. And that's true for sustainability at large, not just in the fashion industry, but it's just the most exciting space to be in right now, is how to get ourselves out of this pickle that we're in called climate change.
Completely, definitely with you on that. I mean, I definitely feel like in the last year, people have changed. The brands that we work with has just changed dramatically. They're wanting to hear more, listen more, see what our development is without instead of demanding what they want from us, they're listening to us and telling what we can do for them, which is nice. Sojin, you've been from Chanel to being the founding team for Net-a-Porter, and now you're running your own venture. At TOSHI, I understand that you work with brands such as Chanel, McQueen, as well as contemporary brands like Vince as well. Yeah. How do you think luxury fashion is responding to the sustainability spotlight? And I'd be interested to know how your business actually is part of that change from fast to slow.
Yeah. So, because of my background, I think I was always conscious of the supply chain and the life cycle of a product. So when we started TOSHI, it was always at the core and forefront of the business that we should have a sustainability play to this. Mm. And obviously, because we're looking at the last mile, which is the logistics aspect, so we really believe that there will be this third sales channel, which is come to me with the product. And we provide the on-demand logistics for that, but also the service element, which is, our assistants who are the ones who go and deliver the experience in the consumer's location, whether that be home, hotel, office, etc. But for us, that has always been core, whether that's because it's been part of what our clients want, as in the end consumer, what the brand partners want, but also what our employees want. Mm-hmm. So if we think about the life cycle of a product, our entry point was, how do we move those goods around and still contribute to what is carbon neutral? And, all of our brands are absolutely have in-house now more than ever, reducing their kind of, carbon reduction targets. They have them embedded into their strategies, into their P&Ls. So as a part of that, we support them because in every city that TOSHI services is launched in, we have always taken the standpoint that we should be piggybacking on existing transportation infrastructure and not adding more traffic, more cars, because we know what that looks like, right? The garments arriving from X to this country, etc. So for us, this concept of utilizing stores and the brand stores as the local depot in which we pick up, go to the client's home, but because we're bringing 3, 4, 5 items, multiple sizes, using public transportation, it means that we're really helping the cycle of that product, ensuring that the customer sees what they want to see, buys what they want to buy, and hopefully that results in them buying, less frivolous items because they're seeing what they want. And then us bringing the goods right back to the consumer, because that's really having a positive impact on reducing returns, which obviously, as we know, is a huge issue in general. not just in terms of emissions, but just, in terms of general businesses overall. So, piggybacking on existing public transportation, and that also includes partnerships with electric car vehicles, if we should be going a bit more remote into Greater London or into the Hamptons or New Jersey, et cetera, in the States. But in addition, when we did focus groups with all of our end consumers, they talked about the frustration of the packaging, right? So everybody was fed up with the concept of receiving small items in large boxes with tons of tissue paper. And obviously, because our proposition is about extending the store capabilities into the customer's location, when we do pick up from the brand itself, we ask for less packaging, because what we want is to arrive at the customer's location and have ease of access to the products. We can show them the 3-4 dresses and then take them right back to the store for whatever they don't keep. So it's really optimizing that inventory life cycle at the end of the day. So at the end of it, it's really about focusing on, helping the carbon neutralities of these brands, but also for ourselves in these high density city locations.
Interesting. And I really like that you're focusing on carbon footprint, because that's sometimes what people forget, especially when it comes to, trying to be more sustainable. They lots of returns, sending things out. And that's something that, when I first started, that's what tripped me up. I mean, we track it all now, and but it took a while to kind of get that ready. When it comes to obviously the pandemic, I'm quite interested to see how your business responded to that, because obviously you work with the stores and you're kind of like that bridging the gap between the store and online. So how was it when obviously all the stores shut, and also the consumer did like this, disposable income changed? You've got some people that with more, and that some people with, quite a lot less. So it's how that affected your business.
I mean, I think we can't speak to obviously the general impact that the pandemic has had on the industry, but no doubt there is, and we've seen the figures out there. But for us, really, if anything, we were probably one of the healthiest sales channels for the stores, because when they closed to the public, they all moved into dark store mode, which is obviously remote selling. And then what would happen is they would say, great, I have a lot of local customers, right? Because it's all about localization. How do you keep those goods locally moving? So thereby, by saying to the store, okay, well, you can trigger us to now extend the reach of the store beyond just where your store is. That meant these stores would be on remote selling, using all these great clienteling tools, and then say, great, TOSHI, I need you to go today to these 50 customers in these locations with these products, do the ceremony of the service, and then bring back whatever they don't keep. So we're constantly optimizing on behalf of them.
Amazing.
So for us, it's been actually, it's accelerated the adoption of this come to me retail. And also, as I say, the localization aspect is absolutely critical, because there's actually quite a few brands today, if you go to their websites, they're not even shipping anymore into the UK, because they understand the issues with this, just Brexit and everything else that's happened to us. So it forces brands to look at optimizing their stock, their merchandising, their open to buys at the local level. So we're really enhancing and supporting the local efficiencies. And as an extension of that, we've also opened our own micro fulfillment warehouse in central London, where we're also able to house goods and move those goods around more efficiently as well. And that also includes things like beauty and skincare, which is a growing category for us.
Amazing.
So it's been really, really insightful, a huge learning, but I think it's great because it also just brings back the concept of how do you remain sustainable and how do you focus on local to support that sustainability.
Yeah, definitely. Jane, your work is in digital technology, mixing science with art. We are seeing more brands, especially luxury, working on more innovative textiles and are using more technology in their collections, from production to promotion. In your opinion, how can this movement filter down to the more attainable side of fashion, with the hope it can make fast fashion less destructive?
Thank you, Frankie, for that question. It's a really, really good one. I have to say that my background is in textiles. It's entrenched in textiles, knitting from the age of 2 onwards, quite literally. And I think, again, I agree with Arizona, understanding the materiality of the world that we live in, and actually quite how we interface materials. I think that's often really missed. Everything that we wear, our skin, every environment that we walk through, live in, that material world is intrinsic to us, and sustainability now is imperative at every level of that. And understanding that world helps us understand what's possible in both other contexts, such as fashion, but also what we can do digitally. In terms of your question in relation to our understanding of digital media and how those kinds of platforms can become more accessible to consumers, and particularly young consumers, actually for nearly 5 to 10 years now, we've had the luxury of being able to learn from young consumers what kinds of experience and engagement they're interested in. So one of the very obvious ones is, for example, Instagram, where we know there's a problem. Young people buying cheap fashion and showing it off on Instagram at a party and then returning it, and of course indirectly creating a landfill with materials that are not easily upcycled or resold, for example, and that is a huge industry problem. However, if you take the other hand side of that, we really get that there's a consumer market out there that really loves experience. And we can do so much more than, there's been a real focus on virtual catwalk for so long. There's anything but virtual catwalk as a potential out there. So there are co-creation platforms, I'm going to do a little bit of a plug for Away to Mars, an amazing company that's working both with other design companies, but also working directly with consumers to develop co-creation platforms for pieces of fashion that are then individually produced bespoke. So then you bring the bespoke manufacturing mechanism and the potential for the localizing of that using digital methods, whether it's digital printing or production or hand making methods. The scope for rethinking the experience of our enjoyment of things that we love. People love fashion, they love wearing things, they love scarves, etc. It's all possible if we can do it in a more mindful way, and technology's sitting there waiting for us to do it in more interesting ways. And I would say that the potential for that is really huge. We haven't even begun to tap into that yet, but many young companies are, and many, I think, future consumers, new consumers, young consumers coming into this space are doing so much more mindfully with sustainability already on their agenda. And that's really key, that's really critical, because they're the future businesses.
No, completely, yeah, I agree. And I suppose when it comes to, obviously, technology, as we know, is going to play obviously a leading role, as when it comes to reducing fashion's impact. It already has, and like you say, there's so many different opportunities that we can do to completely rethink. And I like the word that you say, rethink. So it's actually rethinking the industry, isn't it? Basically from scratch. In my own production, I use cold water dyes to dye our fabric. Food waste, actually, one of our dyeing that we use. I'm wearing a t-shirt made of olive leaves at the moment, and this actually reduces my water usage by 90%. And my energy by 75%. Also, obviously, using ozone and Gerber are also, other mainstream ways that fashion can actually reduce its impact. With this in mind, when it comes to producing, mainly focusing on producing of clothing, what do you believe will be the biggest breakthrough in technology during the next 5 years in kind of the mainstream side of fashion? I mean, this maybe is for you, Jane, and maybe also with you, Arizona, because you're working with brands yourself.
I think there's a parallel track of 100 things happening at once at the moment. We're working with chemical engineers, materials engineering, looking at developing forgeries to melt down waste metals so that we can create one type of metal that might go back into the fashion industry. The circularity agenda, that's still a topic that many don't fully understand what that means. Looking at polyester, we've got enough polyester on the planet to keep reusing polyester. Polyester is a reusable synthetic. I am speaking, I have to say, on behalf of many other academics, not just myself, in understanding that. I've learned a lot through the BFTT program over the last 5 years. But it is literally 100 things that have to happen simultaneously in order to affect the change that you're talking about. But it's happening. And even going back to looking at different dyeing methods, and also technically driven ones, such as using ozone and laser technology, it is an incredible landscape that we're looking at currently. And I have to say, 5 years ago, I really didn't think that would necessarily be on the table. I think the kind of investment that we're now getting, both globally and through venture capital, as well as through government and government agendas, is also very interesting to see how that landscape is shape-shifting. So once you get that shift happening, I think it's because industry definitely understands that it wants and needs it, and that's hugely promising. So it's not that we necessarily want to support fast and scaled up fashion. We do want to get away from that quantity of consumption. We can't still keep on producing materials, that we can't do anything with. We do need to be more mindful, which is why I think all of these tracks to operate more effectively, to be sustainable, is so necessary. And education's key. Working with our young people and showing them how wonderful it is to make things and how tangible that experience is as humans. And that will help them think and be more mindfully as consumers later on in their life. And I don't have children, so Arizona would be able to speak better to that, and I'm sure Sojin too.
So, I mean, that is the beauty of music, isn't it? It's seeing that art, which we kind of lost a little bit with this fast fashion, this turnaround so quickly is quite scary. What do you think, Arizona, when it comes to technology and how that can make an impact?
Something I've been thinking about a lot recently is actually not an innovative technology at all, but it is something that we all need to focus on dramatically at this moment, and especially if you're a municipality or a country, and it's composting. Why are we investing billions of dollars and pounds and euros into recycling and this and that and that and that when the earth does it for us? We need to focus on creating things out of natural and compostable materials. So not just natural, but compostable on top of being natural, meaning non-toxic. So when they turn back into soil on a compost pile, they're not going to be destructive to the microorganisms in that compost pile. It's a solution for food waste, for all biodegradable clothing. And I think we need to really focus on that as a real anchor in the future, is like when life is all compostable, when everything we make can be composted, because that's it. In many ways the ideal form of circularity, because recycling is very energy intensive usually, or chemical intensive. Often recycling methods use baths of chemicals to break down the material back into its raw form, whether that's cellulose or a metal, or it's pretty chemically intensive. But composting is not. It's free, and the earthworms do it for us. So let's focus on that and infrastructure to support that, because right now, I'll give you my example. I live in Westminster, which must be one of the wealthiest boroughs in the world, and no one will come and pick up my compost for me. And I live on the 8th floor, so I can't do it myself. So this is something that really, really needs to change from cities and governments. Please, will you just pick up our food waste and anything that's biodegradable? Because there are incredible companies who are putting huge amounts of energy into making, not energy as in like fossil fuel energy, but like human energy, into making compostable clothing. And if we just put that in a landfill at the end of its life, or compostable plastic, that is such a waste of their innovation and their effort. That's real craziness, and we have to stop doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I saw an article recently, which was someone analysed basically 1,000 items on a fashion website. 10,000 items on a fashion website, and on average, 49% of them were made of new plastic. And actually, if they did call themselves recycled or sustainable, only 1% of fibre was recycled. I mean, that's just, why we're not using more cotton, organic cotton, things like this, it's just madness. We are getting a lot of questions actually from the audience, so I'm actually going to jump into some of these questions for you guys. They've not targeted anyone in particular, so I'm going to say the question, and then whoever feels excited to answer, please jump in. So which brands do you think are doing great work in the high street on sustainable fashion? It's a good question, because people are trying, aren't they?
Yeah. So I think, I agree with both Jane and Arizona that there is still a lot to do, but I think that the conversation is, alive is the good thing right now. And people are, as we say, setting these targets for themselves. But I think Levi's is doing a great job. And I think Levi's, for the size that it is, and then, the stress on water, when it comes to actually working with denim. But Levi's have absolutely set themselves targets between 2025 to 2030 when it comes to the reduction of everything from greenhouse emissions to renewable energies to using, ethically sourced sustainable cotton, all the way to the stress of the water usage. So I think there's still ways to go, but I like the fact that Levi's, which has its history and it's, embedded in a category that has always been known to be so stressful that we've made these commitments at the high street level.
If I could give a shout out for a company called Black Horse Lane.
Oh, I love those guys.
They're amazing because they're a 360 company. They've established the company on the basis of community, how it is they can build the skills capacity within their community. We've just funded them for a range of technology that's going to be able to advance them from London denim, but they're also working with a lot of other brands to help them develop sustainable denim practices. So they're completely different model as a company, and I think that's what's also interesting, that as a consequence of this thinking, we're going to have new types of brand coming through that are thinking in so many more ways than we currently understand brands to do, and they have the agility to do so, and they're really bringing communities with them, which is so fascinating.
And they're lovely, lovely people too.
And they're lovely people. Yeah.
I've got two questions, so we're going to give you, Jane, one of them, which is, what exciting ideas companies are seeing to help buyers use mixed reality and VR? So when it becomes basically more accurate, so when they're buying product, but also they can introduce customization when it comes to their direct customer. This could reduce waste.
Oh, I mean, completely. It's going back to, what can we do to create new types of experience that produce less waste? I mean, I have to say we have to be slightly measured here, because obviously digital technologies themselves require us to draw on resources. We're all using machines currently that require different levels of resource. So I think we do need to be careful that we're also including that conversation in the greater investment discussion. However, when you have literally billions of people operating games technology, and you can begin to see the potential for fashion practices and experiences being built into buying skins, for example, so your own digital skins, you can develop your own digital identities. If that experience does slightly change the relationship we have with buying physical clothing, then I think it's still jury's out as to whether or not that will actually change the footprint that we leave, even given the technology that we're working with. So again, it's part of an ecosystem. There's no one thing you can take in isolation. I think another example is looking at AI, machine learning, and how, as I said earlier, we're developing more bespoke, techniques of making our own selection for a printed shirt that we keep for longer, wear for longer, truly love, rather than buying 20 shirts that, are kind of the same thing, but we don't really think about very much. It does come down to experience, because at the end of the day, we are human, and so we have to shift a lot of aspects of our humanness in order for all of these elements to work. But I do think we've got to look at the digital technology we're working with and be mindful of where it's coming from, in addition, before we shift entirely to a digital realm.
Yeah, go steady. The last question we've got is, we are all bombarded with daily emails from brands we love, trying to get us to buy. Obviously, they still need to sell and be profitable. What do you see changing this model? And that's an interesting one, because I myself are one of those brands, and I find that such a difficult thing to try and fight with my morals. I need to sell to continue what I'm doing and to change fashion with what I love to do, but also I don't want people to buy things they don't need.
I think, I don't know, maybe Sojin has more of a, but I'd say the Black Horse Lane model, again, thinking about how you bring, maybe a more triangular model to your business model, rather than an A to Z, whatever that is in business terms. Sorry, I'm not necessarily giving you the right terminology, but is there a more literally circular methodology that you could build into the business model? I think that is definitely going to be, I'm seeing more and more young businesses really think quite differently about what their business model is and what our engagement with that is. So you've got different methods of developing the funding element of it. How do you make money? How do you do that in a sustainable way? And how does it come from different sources?
And like what you said, focusing on natural products, so when it does come to the end of their life. I mean, that's the goal with this T-shirt that I'm wearing, is that we don't use any nasty chemicals. So it's having that end of life plan that isn't going to be as harmful, and then also obviously looking at recycling and actually being kind of focused on that. But I like what you said about purely, let's look at natural. Let's look at what we've got already.
Yeah, but I also think there's probably an opportunity for us to reclaim what is luxury in retail, in the sense that it's a margin play, right? So it's not about, let's do 1,000 drops. As Arizona said, we all became, especially because of pure play e-com, we became addicted to the what's new. And in fact, at the end of the day, the concept should be more about the brand saying, I have the confidence to say that I will not go on discount, because it's the discount cycle then that leads to everybody discounting, and then it becomes a purge, and then you're setting a precedent for the way your consumers will engage with product, with, you know, how, when they access you. So I would say to have absolutely the confidence in knowing that the product and the creativity and all the hard work that goes behind these amazing brands is to say, I hold my margin, because actually these are also, you know, investments. They're actually lifelong product purchases that I want to make, rather than just cluttering myself.
Yeah.
And quality, I think, is key. You know, so again, Black Horse Lane, they only want you to buy one pair of jeans from them in your lifetime. Who has that business model? That's incredible. I think that's a really brave business model. And maybe it doesn't work, or maybe it works with lots of other components. But to think that way, I think, is the opportunity. You know, how do we produce things of a quality that we maybe do charge a little bit more for, or add another experience to really get the consumer engaged? I think that's the opportunity. It's really exciting.
Yeah. I suppose it's getting the consumer to fall in love with their clothes again, isn't it? It's we've got so used to this, you know, see and buy straight away, that it's actually just, you know, let's buy things that we truly love. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I do love, like, talking about when it comes to the consumer side. So obviously, you got people who, you know, there's also the side where it comes to luxury. People can obviously afford to buy things at full price. Sometimes when it comes to discount, it's giving people opportunity who don't normally have that money to buy something that's good quality that will last them. So there's two sides of it, isn't there? Of, you know, what type of consumer you're wanting to engage with.
Yeah, and again, getting young people, I think, involved. You know, so the whole activity around dyeing, for example, you were talking about your T-shirts, you know, earlier, Frankie. You know, that's brilliant. I think young people love to understand that. You know, it's really a no-brainer. They learn so much. They learn about science, arts, technology, and then they make something that they maybe have more investment in and keep it. So how many things do we remember from our generation, or maybe my generation? I'm a bit older, but, you know, I've still got things I've kept from my early years, teenage years, and, you know, they still stand the test of time, you know, but that's quite an old-fashioned thing to do now. And I think a little bit of bringing that back into the narrative of what makes us human and what our experience in relation to clothing is also quite exciting. So it's almost like an anthropology piece, really. It's not just the object, but I think there's appetite for that. You know, if we can slightly come off the fast fashion treadmill, but now is, you know, really critical moment coming out of the pandemic. And I think it's really interesting hearing Sojin talk about how you bring that experience to the consumer and really thinking through that process,
Definitely.
but again in another and very different mindful way, you know, and a lot of thought has gone into that. It sounds very simple, but my goodness, the logistics of pulling that off well are, you know, I can hear how complex that is, you know. So
Completely.
know.
Oh, this has been so exciting, everybody. It's lovely. I'm going to bring Layla back, so she can stop us from talking, because I think we could talk for hours more, couldn't we?
Thank you so much, Frankie, Arizona, Jane, Sojin. That was such an insightful and riveting panel. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience has as well. Sustainable fashion definitely sounds a lot more fun and interesting than just regular fast fashion. And I really think that, well, all points were extremely well made, but I think the point about education around sustainability was a really well-made one by Arizona, where Arizona spoke about sustainability and education beginning around learning all about the sourcing, the composition and the production of the textiles and the materials themselves. So for anyone who has an interest in this topic area, I think that is a great tip. We now have a break, so please use the opportunity to explore our virtual booths and networking areas. There's lots and lots on at CogX. The next session for CreaTech is at 3 p.m., so do come back.